Hey, Amit, great to have you on the show. Amit is resolving conflicts with top-tier startups and founders in the Israeli ecosystem and is an angel investor. In the past, Amit was an entrepreneur who founded two companies, both of which exited. Amit, great to have you on the show, and we are going to talk about conflict management in early-stage startups. How about if you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey Daniel, thank you for having me. It's really nice to speak and to see you today. I can introduce myself. I think you did very well. I like to do a lot of things, and that's how I got to do all those things that I do. As you mentioned, I had two companies that I co-founded and sold, and then today I do a lot of angel investing, a lot of other kinds of investing, and professionally, what I do is that I am a mediator. Means I help companies resolve conflicts, basically get back to work, deal with things that prevent people from focusing on their work.
Got it. So how about if we dive a little bit into that? What does your day-to-day look
Am
like?
I allowed to drink coffee on your show?
Please do feel free. Weed is also great if you want to get into that vibe, whatever you
In 10 a.m., I'm not in that age anymore.
got it. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day. What are the top issues that you see?
Yeah, so it's actually quite fascinating because I have a kind of like a sample of the situation of the ecosystem, what I hear and what people talk to me about. I talk to a lot of investors which consult with me about the different situations in their portfolio, and then I also get some calls from founders who need help. So I get I get a good feeling of what's happening in the ecosystem. And basically, I have to say that there are two things that two groups of things that are happening. One thing is founders that made a very bad choice creating their situation, maybe choosing the wrong co-founder, maybe creating not a very efficient split of responsibility, division of responsibilities between inside the team, and creating a not a good and functional working situation. That obviously creates a lot of problems that then you have to try to go back and re-engineer and resolve. The other kind is the more complex and often more exciting for me to deal with, is a bit more mature companies that already have a team, some employees, raise some money, have sales, and have a good team of co-founders that worked well together. But as you know, in any kind of relationship, in a partnership, in a romantic partnership, people grow. People start from a certain place and then they grow. And the second group of cases that I'm talking about, basically what happens is that people grow a bit further from where they started. And then there's a certain gap or misunderstanding or misalignment that's getting created in a team that actually works well on many, many aspects. And then you have to kind of help people adjust. In some cases, you cannot, and they have to go their separate ways. And you also have to help them go their separate ways in a good way, in a way that doesn't kill the company. And that's very exciting and very interesting for me.
All right, so maybe we can go into a little bit more details, right? Like you said, the first is creating a bad environment, or maybe, you don't do that purposefully, but you
Yeah.
reach a bad. And so what are some indicators of that? What does it mean to create a good environment?
Mm. Yeah. So first of all, you have to have people in your team that have the skills and the desire to do what you need be done, right? If you have a team that has 3 people that really like to code, or 2 people that really like to do sales, but no one that likes to code, and you're building a software company, you're in a problem, right? So the most basic thing is to understand that you need to have people doing what needs to be done. A lot of people like someone, and maybe it's a good friend of theirs, which is an amazing and important thing. But you have to be aware that if your good friend, with whom you want to start a company, doesn't have the skills you need, then you have to hire that person later. So the first problem is the first parameter, or the first thing to think about, is what people can do and what they want to do. And then the second thing, which is a bit more tricky or more fluid, is alignment on the vision, on the lifestyle, on how you see and how you want business to be done. I can share a story of how I started. End of 2017, beginning of 2018, I started my first company, and I had two co-founders. Their names were at that time Bar and Tal. Me and Bar had a very good alignment on how we saw the vision of what we're doing, where we wanted to go. And we were working with a third person who is an amazing, great guy. I like him. Also very capable, named Tal. But there wasn't a good alignment on the vision. He thought things needed to go in a certain way, and we thought we need to go in a different way. And of course, that's a lot of luck, but a little bit of smart. So we were smart enough to part ways in an early enough stage, 2 or 3 months after we started working together, which didn't create problems for the company. He went on and still have a great career. We went on and built a great company, so it was good for everyone. But it was because we were aware of it and realized that in an early stage. So a good construction of the team in terms of skills and desires, and an alignment on the vision. That's what I would say.
Got it. So it almost reminds me of, there's this questionnaire from psychologist Myers-Briggs, if you're familiar.
Yeah.
Where you try to figure out people's strengths and weaknesses as well, right? If you have someone doing sales who's an introvert, you're probably gonna, their functionality won't be great, and they also won't really enjoy what they do, and that affects the whole team.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you mentioned is, I guess, just a different vision or where you think you should be going. I would call that values also, if we relate that to standard or romantic relationships. If your ethics or values are different, someone wants kids, your partner doesn't want kids, and that also can create some conflict. So I would say that's more environment related. What if we go now to the second point that you mentioned, which is a little bit more the environment set? We're in a healthy environment, but things are arising still.
Yeah.
How do we maintain healthy relationships?
Yeah. So that's actually, I want to say something that can bridge the two parts of the conversation. People are complex, relationships are a complex thing. And it's important to understand that it's not either or, it's not black or white. Some people can be introvert and can be great salespeople, and the other way around, and all the combinations of skills and output, professional output, can occur. It's important to understand that people are complex. And then that takes us to the second part of the conversation. What to be aware of is, first of all, to have some part of your brain thinking about what's happening to your co-founder. Now, many people, especially in tech, especially great entrepreneurs that build great companies, have very low EQ. That's just the statistics, right? I'm not even commenting on that. We can see some of the most successful entrepreneurs in history have very limited emotional wisdom. I don't know how you call
Intelligence.
But I think, and some of them had a great career working alone, right? But if you want to work in a team, which is, I think, much more fun, you have to have some part of your brain thinking about your co-founders. Is he going through a rough time right now? Is he developing a new hobby? Is he developing some resentment about something that happened that maybe wasn't anybody's fault? For example, again, I'll give an example from my experience. We raised money end of February 2020. Around 2 weeks after we raised money was lockdown everywhere. The whole world went crazy. No one knew anything. It tried to look back and everybody can try to remember what happened in their lives in March 2020. It was a crazy time. People were scared. There was lockdown in Israel, in San Francisco, everywhere. And we couldn't, back in that time, 2019, the classic move was for Israeli founders to raise money, then go move to the valley and start their sale operation there. But that wasn't possible. And that effect of lockdown, people working from home and not being able to travel to California and meet customers, created a very different impact on me and on my co-founders at that time. So I think you have to be aware of that and understand what happens to your friends and colleagues and react in accordance. That's very important. And not everybody can do that. And if you know that you're not good at doing that, that's a good sign to use a third party, maybe an advisor, an investor or something, someone else.
So if we zoom in on what you said with sales in San Francisco, I'm trying to understand what the issue was there. So basically, you had certain expectations that weren't met, and that created conflict.
Oh. There's a mountain of things. So first of all, a lot of people had a very hard time working when the team was working from home. And then think about the situation where you've been working in an office for 2 years with a small team, and you're very used to coming and touching the shoulder, putting a hand on the shoulder of all your colleagues every day. How are you doing? What you're working on? How is your work going? And then suddenly, one day, in a situation that no one knows how is this going to develop, you're in the office alone because you're the founder. You're very passionate, and you're saying, "Okay, I have to go to the office," or maybe even you're working from home. But the entire team is working from home. And today, 4 or 5 years later, everybody has their own setup at home and a screen and everything. But at that time, it wasn't like that. We didn't have the habit and the setup for the work from home situation. So that was very stressful. We didn't know how to monitor and how to track a team of 10 people or 15 people working from home. That was very stressful. There wasn't one thing. And I can honestly say that for all us 3 co-founders, that created different pressures. Well, our CTO, Shlomi, was in charge of the developers, and he was very focused on, he was working 24 hours a day that time, because he was like, I have to see with my eyes the code of everybody to understand what's going on. Today, of course, there are tools that do that and everything, but it wasn't like that 5 years ago. And then you're asking about the situation of traveling. So we were 3 co-founders. We had the plan that me, the COO, would travel to San Francisco and start building a sale operation there. It wasn't possible. So now you have to rethink everything. Okay, are we trying to do outbound sales, B2B SaaS, or via Zoom? Which again, today sounds reasonable and quite, I think, maybe standard. But at that time, it wasn't like that. So who is in charge of doing the video calls? Now we have 2 co-founders who are part of the, let's say, business side of the company. We had a plan of one of me traveling to the US. Now that plan is gone. How are we sitting shoulder to shoulder, both on Zoom? That creates a lot of pressure, right? You're saying you're doing the pitch different than the way I do it. So that's a complex situation. It's just a complex situation. It's not bad or good. It's just a very complex situation that creates different processes in everyone's mind.
Right. So, especially in early stage startups, there are lots of stressful situations. Also, things like COVID hit everyone. So what kind of tools can I use to handle these stressful situations and maintain healthy relationships and, smooth sailing in the startup as much as possible?
That's the most important thing. This is the most important thing because I think challenges happen everywhere. The best companies and the best teams all have challenges. We had tremendous challenges and we built a good company that had a good exit. The thing to remember is everybody has challenges and you need to deal with that. So first I said, and I will repeat that because the most important thing is to have at least 15% of your brain working, thinking about your friends and colleagues. Second thing is talk about your issues. Try to do maybe once a day. For some people, it would be 10 minutes a day. For some people, it would be 1 hour a week. For some people, it would be a full day every month, maybe all of those options. To meet with your co-founder or co-founders, just talk about what stresses you, what doesn't work for you. I can say that I've seen a lot of teams start to do that and doesn't do that well because, when you're young and there's a lot of ego involved, those talks can be emotional and not very effective sometimes. So if you notice that talking directly doesn't really get you to a good place, then you have another option, which is using close friend, close advisor, one of your investors. There are a lot of founder coaches and therapists, psychologists, people that do coaching. I don't do coaching. I only do crisis management because I'm not a psychologist and I'm also just I'm a practical person, but there are people that do long-term processes, so you can use some kind of that person. It could be one of your angels or one of your investors that would meet with you once a week and help you talk things out. Now, if there's a situation that you get stuck, situation where someone sees the people don't see things eye to eye and they can't agree, and when it gets to a point when you start doubting what your co-founder tells you, the first crack in the arch of trust that you have towards your co-founder, that's a good sign to stop and look for a professional person to help you manage that. Because when you don't trust, when your co-founder tells you, hey, I'm going to send that email, and then you have to check if that person sent that email, when you're not 100% confident, when he tells you, I had a meeting, and in that meeting, that customer told me X, and you're not 100% sure that X was told in that meeting, in the first breach of trust, you have to stop. And this is, of course, there are many people that do that, but that's what I do. When there's a problem that is a breach of trust, for me, is something I cannot work with people I don't trust. I cannot work with, if someone tells me, hey, that thing, I paid $100 for that. And I'm like, did he? Or did he pay $90 and took $10 to his pocket? That's where you have to stop and you have to seek professional help, because this can grow and develop and it's terrible.
So catch it early.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term, but I feel like something that helps me in some of my relationships, whether it's professional or personal, is nonviolent communication. You familiar with
Yeah.
that? Go ahead.
And that focuses on situation where one side uses violent communication in how you can counter that and how you can deal with that with nonviolent communication. That's just because you mentioned that it's a great book.
Yeah, so I think Rosenberg is the guy's name who came up with this, and there's also a great video on YouTube, and I feel like it helped me a lot with my relationships. But I think the core idea is sometimes we speak in a violent manner where you end up hurting other people's feelings without noticing it. And, we can say, oh, feelings, I don't need that, but at the end of the day, we aren't
Yeah,
just
that's like feelings. I don't need that.
like we aren't just logical creatures. We are deeply based on emotion. And many times if you say the wrong thing or you hint that the other side is not okay, or you criticize maybe unknowingly, but thinking of the other side's perception of things and speaking in a way that isn't harmful, even if you're disappointed, you
Yeah,
can speak from your place. You can say, hey, you did that. That made me upset. That's fine. You can say that. That hurt me. That made me feel X. That's fine. But if you say things like, why'd you do it like that? Whenever I hear the word why about why someone did something, I immediately, for me, I know there's going to be a problem many times. Like, why didn't you wash the dishes? Why didn't you do? Yeah, it's some form of criticism behind the
yeah,
scenes. So I usually try to be careful with the word why, but also in general, just trying to be neutral and speaking in a place that comes from my side of things without any intention of harm. And oftentimes when you bring those feelings out, people emphasize with you a little bit more. They're more emphatic.
yeah.
That's what I find has been helpful for me. And I can imagine that it can help with the day-to-day between founder relationships and startup relationships as well.
Yes, and let me build on that. I want to say something else, something on top of that. When someone asks you, why did you do something? That often implies that you have a different default situation. I'll give an example from a romantic relationship. My wife would ask me, why did you put your shoes not in that place, but in that place, right? And then why did you take off your shoes not in that place, but in that place? And then when you think about it, you understand that for her, the default situation is that shoes has one place and it's there. And my default situation is that shoes go off wherever I'm comfortable taking them off, right? We have a different default situation, and that creates the question why. So when your co-founder asks you, hey, why did you call that person and not text him? Why did you offer a discount and not the full price? You can think, do we have a different default definition of the situation? And that is the real conversation we need to have. Maybe I think that we must sign more customers very fast. The money doesn't matter right now. We need to show traction. So I offer the discount. But my co-founder thinks that at this point, we need to show that we're able to sell the full price. And this is the real conversation we need to have, and not a conversation about what happened on the call. Maybe the customer asked for a discount. It really doesn't matter. What matters is how we both think differently about selling the full price of the product. So when you're asked, why did you do something? Stop for a second and think if you have a different default definition of the situation. That's the conversation you need to have.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I think whenever something pops up that could hint that the values are a little bit different around something, it's worth having a conversation. And it's also completely fine to disagree. I think Amazon has that principle of disagree and commit, right? So if you're always disagreeing, then there's probably an issue, but it's fine, I think, even for half of the things to disagree and say, okay, but we're going to do this.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more about handling the situation, right? So if you disagree, but you don't really talk about it and you keep it inside and the frustration builds, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same. I always go back to the same thing. If you disagree and your co-founder tells you, listen, I'm the CEO, my decision right now is that it's very important that you show that we can sell the full price of the product. And I disagree, but I say, you know what? I disagree. But this is not a matter of vision and values. It's a tactical decision. I accept your decision, I disagree, and I commit. That's very good. But if the disagreement remains on the emotional and trust level, if you're like, maybe he doesn't believe me that I wanted to sell the full price. Maybe he doesn't believe me. Maybe he doesn't trust me that I can sell the full price. If you remain on that level, it's a very bad disagreement. And then if you just commit, it just makes you more frustrated, and it makes you resent that decision. So if the disagreement is precise, you know what you're disagreeing on, it's a tactical decision, and you decide to let it go and continue, that's great. If it's emotional and your ego is harmed, then that's not a good place to disagree and commit.
Got it. So for me, this has been pretty insightful.
Yes.
Are there any last things you think founders should know or focus on when it comes to conflict management or day-to-day relationships?
Just be a human being. Just be a human being. I had a teacher when I was young who told me I was a very practical person. I still am, but when I was a kid, I was less balanced around it. And I had a teacher that told me, stop looking at people as if they were functions. People are not functions. They have multiple things they can do, multiple things they want to do, and just be human beings. I try to write about that on my LinkedIn. I have a newsletter, so if people want to stay in touch. But it was great talking to you. I really enjoyed it. I hope I didn't give very long answers.
Long answers sometimes are great. Where can people find you, Amit, and when should they get in touch with
Yeah. So first of all, I'm always happy to consult founders if they need help around issues that I addressed around conflicts. But the best time to address me professionally is if you have a conflict that you want to manage, something practical that you want to resolve. LinkedIn is the best way. I'm also on Twitter, but LinkedIn is the best way. I have a website, amitmittelman.com. And if people want to just listen to what I have to say, then I have a newsletter that I send out once a month. You can find it on my LinkedIn. That's it. As you see, I'm happy. I'm a talkative person, so it's not hard to stay in touch with me.
I'm sure you must get this joke about your name and your profession, right?
Yes. That's actually, you know what? Maybe it's destiny. I don't know. Maybe it's God. I don't know. But yeah, the Mittelman is actually a middleman in a German pronunciation, and my grandfather was born in Slovakia, which have German ethnicity roots. So maybe it's in my blood. I don't know.
I didn't know that that's what it actually meant.
It actually means that, yeah. It's actually not a very common name, but it exists in Germany. The Mittelman name is either German or Jewish.
As a marketer, I have to say that, it's the best branding you could ask for. When you're starting a new startup and you look for a domain and it's such a headache, like to find the right domain, you got the best domain out of the box. You don't need to
Yes,
pay $1 million
I like
a
it.
year.
I like it. amitmittelman.com. I like it.
All right. Thanks so much, Amit.
Thank you, Daniel. It was great talking to you.